Join us in our journey from dreams to reality. We have sold everything we own to buy James Wharram Catamaran and restore her to her former glory. With a bit of knowledge and a shoestring budget, we dream to one day be living aboard her on the sea. So it was really good on that last episode. We got that first beam all finished in the boat. So I've brought this one home and I have started sanding it. Well, I've actually sanded off all the paint. I didn't think I really needed to film that. There is some sections with some pretty serious rot in it. Sort of to be expected, I guess. Most of it is pretty good. Last time I might have gone a little bit excessive, say with small patches of rot, little bits. I think I'm just going to put some thinned out epoxy in here, let it penetrate. I will scarf out any cracks there is, fill them with epoxy and then put a little bit of glass. But most of the bad rot is in this top glued piece of wood here. So I'm actually just going to remove that whole bit of wood, put a new bit of wood in, and then this section here, this was the worst of it. I'm going to make a new one of them. That just raises the beam a bit higher for where the tabernacle sits. So I'll put a new one of them in this whole section. So I've sanded off the outsides too. I'm actually going to put another piece of glass here. I've glassed this, I've glassed this. So just here, I'll get the belt sander on that today too. Rip all that off and I'll run a piece of glass around the whole back of it. And then this tabernacle will be very strong. I can paint that at the same time as painting this and then put them back down the boat together. Two layers of 1708 glass cloth is added to the tabernacle. The original design of this is made from wood covered in a 2-pack paint, but given the forces from the mast, we have decided to strengthen all our structural components with 1 to 2 layers of glass cloth. After glassing, I mix the filler coat and spread it as evenly as possible. While adding some protection to the cloth, this allows me to lightly sand the surface smooth in preparation for paint. It also enables me to sand without removing any of the cloth, keeping the strength. I drill holes in the rotten wood so I can fill the holes with a penetrating epoxy, allowing the resin to harden the rotten wood. I only do this in the smaller patches of rot where it is possible to stop the spread. When the penetrating epoxy dries, the wood will be strong and the rot fibres will not be able to spread. I finish off the repair by filling the holes with a thickened epoxy. So I've picked up that piece of Oregon to put on the top layer of the beam. Obviously with this bit of wood, it was 150 wide, I need to rip it down to about 115, so I've got my circular saw. I've just made this little jig with some packers and a straight edge. So that keeps the wood in line. I'll go along with the saw and rip this bit off the whole length. Hey buddy, hey boys, hey. I've just brushed on a layer of thinned out epoxy. I'm letting that soak in and go a little bit tacky, and then I'll do my glue joint. This will stop any of the glue pulling into the wood and causing it not to bond properly. I've got about 50 mil here.
Yep, perfect. Right. Yeah.
Now that the new piece of wood has been glued in place, I come back to it a couple days later. Given I machined the piece of Oregon with limited machinery, I will now square it by hand with a plane. It takes patience to square the wood by hand, but once done I'll have a finish that I'm happy with. The back of the tabernacle sits on this raised piece of wood. The forces of the mast push directly down on this. I epoxy glue a piece of hardwood on the top to help deal with these pressures. The original piece that was here had cracked, and the ingress of salt water over the years had caused it to completely rot away. Once the glue is dried and we glass over this section, it shouldn't ever be a problem. I use a chisel to scrape away the excess glue. This makes the job heaps quicker when it comes to sanding. After I use the chisel, I follow with the electric plane and then the hand plane. After this I can start the sanding. These blocks on the ends stop movements of the lashings on beams 2 and 3. The lashings run from the ends of the beams to the outside of the hulls, where it is attached to large wooden cleats. Now we glass the whole beam with 450 gram double bias cloth. We have decided to glass the entire length of all the beams to give us some peace of mind on long ocean passages. In this clip you can see that we've covered the whole beam in a fairing compound. We'll sand this smooth now in preparation for painting.